Welcome to this Whole Life Action Hour. In a few moments, we'll be joined by Dr. Will Bulsiewicz, best-selling author of Fiber Fueled, for today's focus, which is on how you can heal your gut. You know, a healthy gut shapes your energy, your mood, your metabolism, your digestion, and your immune system. It can also protect you from gas and bloating and constipation and digestive discomforts, and it can protect you from chronic illness. We know that junk food and lack of fiber and glyphosate and antibiotics and other toxins can compromise the bacteria upon which your digestion depends. But if your gut health is less than optimal, is there anything you can do about it? Yes. A lot. And that's what we're going to focus on today. Now, I want to be very clear about one thing before we get going, which is that nothing you hear today is medical advice. This is coaching. This is sharing best insights. But of course, you should always consult with a qualified healthcare professional for your specific medical needs and issues. That said, you're going to learn a lot today. This event is a project of Whole Life Club, which is Food Revolution Network's ongoing membership community. This week, we're hosting action hours with Dr. David Katz, one that we held on Saturday. This one today that will be with Dr. Will Bulsiewicz and with Dr. Kim Williams on Wednesday. Whole Life Club paid members get access to all of our library of action hours, including transcripts, and the chance to submit questions in advance for future ones. They also get weekly recipes, action of the week videos, monthly live events on Zoom, a community of support, and lots more. So if you stay to the end, I'll tell you all about Whole Life Club and how you can join in. The doors are open this week for the last time in 2021 for direct access. So stay on to the end to learn all about that and find out if it's for you. And now I want to introduce our incredible guest, Dr. Will Bulsiewicz. He's the New York Times bestselling author of Fiber Fueled, the plant-based gut health program for losing weight, restoring your health, and optimizing your microbiome. He's board certified in internal medicine and gastroenterology, and he's the founder of the Gut Health MD, which has grown to become one of the internet's most trusted sources for gut health tips and advice. Dr. Bulsiewicz is the author of more than 20 articles published in peer-reviewed scientific journals, and every day he helps patients to bounce back from restrictive and overhyped diets and into a whole new way of living and eating that produces the results they really want on a permanent basis. Will, welcome.
Thank you, Ocean. It's a great pleasure to be here and to be here with this entire wonderful community. I'm excited to talk about all things gut health and see where this goes.
All righty, fantastic. Well, let's jump right in here. You've been studying gut health for many years. You've become one of the most prominent experts on the topic in the world today. How has what you've learned as you've dug into the research surprised you? What has stood out? Like you went in thinking one thing and now you think something different.
I don't know if there are surprises anymore when it comes to gut health, because it's been so revolutionary in the way that we look at the human body and physiology. You know, I mean, it's shocking to me that most of what I was taught in medical school, I went to Georgetown for medical school. I graduated in 2006. And most of what I was taught in medical school, I honestly feel like we need to update and look a second time back at those lessons through this lens, this new lens of gut health. We really didn't know anything about gut health, these microbes, and we knew very little about them back in 2006 when I graduated. And now here we are, and we know that it's connected to our digestion, our digestive function, to our metabolism, our hormones, our brain, our mood, our immune system, the expression of our genetics. I mean, we're talking about, you know, basically everything that really matters comes back to this. And but to answer your question, I mean, you know, I guess let me take you straight to the article that opened my eyes and changed my world, which was 2014, an article in the journal Nature by Lawrence David, last name David, not hard to find. And basically, he took a group of people and he put them on 5 days of a completely plant-based diet versus 5 days of just meat, dairy, and eggs. And he tracked their microbiome every single day And what he saw was that in just 5 days on a plant-based diet, you can change your microbiome, you can enhance it, you can make it more functional, you can improve your ability to produce healing metabolites like short-chain fatty acids, or alternatively, in 5 days of an animal product-based diet, you can create a microbiome that is inflammatory, that predisposes you to colorectal cancer, that increases your risk of inflammatory bowel disease. And so when I saw that, I was already sort of making a dietary shift, but for me in my own life, that was like, whoa, okay, it's time to make some changes. And it really has led me to where I am today.
Fascinating. There are some people who on a plant-based diet experience digestive challenges like gas and bloating and, upset tummies. Some people think it's from legumes. What are the most common dynamics you see at play? Because I know a number of people who've actually gone to eating animal products because they experience less short-term digestive discomfort from that. What do you think could be causing that dynamic?
I think it's important for people to understand what is actually happening with their body. And we are sort of misappropriating where the problem exists. If you take a person who has a damaged gut and they consume an excessive amount of fiber and FODMAPs are the fermentable parts of our food that you'll find in legumes or whole grains or things of that variety. If they consume an excessive amount of fiber and FODMAPs with a damaged gut, they are going to be uncomfortable. And that is not inflammation. That is sloppy digestion. And it's because the functional capacity of their gut is not prepared for the amount of fiber and FODMAPs that they're introducing. And this can give people, Ocean, I actually came across someone literally in the last few days who I was talking to, and they said, a plant-based diet ruined my gut. They said, I had a completely raw vegan diet and I was miserable. Well, I would never actually recommend that a person start with a raw vegan diet, to be completely honest with you. There is a process to healing our gut, to adapting it, to getting it stronger so that it's more capable of processing fiber and FODMAPs. And a raw vegan diet is not the place to start to do that. We need to ease our body into it, go low and slow, and then we will become stronger. We will adapt to what we are doing. We will restore function that wasn't there previously. But in the very beginning, if you go too hard, too fast with fiber and FODMAPs, you're going to feel it and you're not going to feel well. And, let me just be clear, like meat is not healing your gut. Bone broth, there is no study that exists that says that bone broth enhances digestive function or heals your gut. Doesn't exist. Removing these foods from your diet does not enhance and restore your gut. The paradox or the challenge, Ocean, is that the foods that cause the most symptoms and disruption are also the foods that these people need the most to heal. And so it's important that we understand that there is a process to building up towards that, and we have to go low and slow.
So what are for someone who is experiencing significant discomfort or stress or suffering from a leaky gut or an unhealthy gut experience, what is the step-by-step process you recommend for beginning to restore and heal?
Yeah. So let me start with this and just say that a person comes into my clinic. I may be known as the plant-based GI doctor, and I wrote a book called Fiber Fueled. That doesn't mean that on your first visit to my clinic that you're going to walk out with dietary recommendations and that's it. To me, where we start is we first have to understand what we are treating. That is the first step in all of healthcare. What are we treating? We can't tailor our treatments until we actually have a good understanding of that. If a person has celiac disease, we need to know that. And so there's a number of different conditions that we need to go down the line and take off the table to make sure that we're properly treating our patients. Once we get past that, if we're talking about true food intolerances in the setting of someone who potentially has irritable bowel syndrome, then to me, it's about, okay, which foods are causing those intolerances? Let's identify the foods so that we can be smart consumers. And then within those individual foods, let's recognize that there is a threshold of tolerance. What that means is that if you stay below that threshold, you'll be okay. And if you exceed that threshold, if you're someone who's sensitive to legumes and you go and you eat the 5-bean chili, you're going to have trouble. So we need to identify what that threshold is, and then we can go low and slow below that threshold to build up strength, to build up momentum, to restore function. And over the course of time, what actually happens is that threshold goes up, 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 up to the point that you then become capable of doing things that you didn't think you were capable of doing, like eating a full serving of the 5-bean chili and actually enjoying it.
Yeah, thank you. What about BINO or other digestive enzymes? Do they have a place in all of this?
Sure. So there's a couple digestive enzymes that do have value. BINO is alpha galactosidase. That can provide some benefit for people who suffer with symptoms related to legume consumption. I'm completely fine if people want to use that. I don't see it as being harmful in any way. If a person is consuming lactose, like I myself don't consume any lactose, and to be completely upfront and honest, if a person comes to my clinic with digestive issues, probably the first dietary change that I will make is to remove lactose from their diet. But recognizing that we have a diverse audience, there's going to be people who consume dairy products. Lactase, which you'll find in lactate in the United States, can also be helpful for those particular people if they choose to continue to consume lactose. Going beyond that, we start to get into digestive enzymes that are more broad ocean. They are plant-based, and they're not necessarily recreating exactly what our mammalian biology does. They can still provide benefit. I'm not here to tell you that if you feel like these enzymes help you, that you're wrong. I would never say that. If they help you, then they help you, and I love that. The problem that we have is that we have a wide variety of different digestive enzymes, and every single company has their own version, and unfortunately, none of them have actually studied their version. So we just don't know what works and what doesn't work. And so at the end of the day, if it makes you feel better, then I'm okay with it when it comes to those things. But I wouldn't want you spending a lot of money without getting some results. That's for sure.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, we've got a lot of questions from our Whole Life Club members that were submitted in advance of this. So let's see if we can jump into some of those. And then if we have more time, we'll come back for a little more chat at the end of that. Cynthia said, much talk about unhealthy guts. What does a healthy gut look like, especially on a plant-based diet with a lot of digestive associated symptoms?
Well, the reality, Ocean, honestly, is that Cynthia effectively already described the counterpoint. If we want to look at what does a healthy gut look like, then we should start by first defining what does an unhealthy gut look like. And, look, we're all susceptible to digestive symptoms at times. I mean, gosh, if I go out to a Mexican restaurant, I might not feel that well an hour or two later. But an unhealthy gut is a gut that is intolerant of the routine consumption of regular foods. And so if you have sensitivities, gas, bloating, digestive discomfort, a change in your bowel habits, whether it's diarrhea or constipation, if you have those symptoms when you're consuming a normal amount of food, there's something going on, and we need to figure out what that is. That, to me, is characteristic of an unhealthy gut. The person with a healthy gut is able to consume food without fear, enjoy the full pleasure that comes from that food in abundance without restriction. And so basically, the person who has a healthy gut, they don't even think about it, because they're just enjoying their food.
Yes, thank you. Cool. Valerie said, how do food allergies affect gut health? And if the foods are avoided, does the gut heal? And if so, how long does it take? And I would add to Valerie's question, how do you assess or diagnose food allergies?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. And I think it's important for people to understand the difference between a food allergy and a food intolerance. So up to this point, if you've been listening from the beginning, we've been talking about food intolerances. This is really what I've been educating you on and teaching about. Food allergies are different than that. When you have a food intolerance, there is no activation of the immune system. It does not involve the immune system at all. When you have a food allergy, it does. In fact, it is the immune system that is activated in a food allergy. And that is what is actually driving the disease process. So an allergy is when your immune system determines that something in your diet is actually the enemy. And when you consume that food in your diet, your immune system becomes activated and it goes on the attack. This tends to be proteins, believe it or not. Proteins tend to be the issue when it comes to food allergies. It can be proteins from any of a number of different things. It's extremely common with dairy. That's one of the top food allergies that exists. The point from my perspective is that if you have a true food allergy, the immune system gets activated with any level of consumption. So let me give you a quick example. If we have a person who is lactose intolerant, and we're talking about dairy, lactose intolerant is not a food allergy. I could take that person and put 2 drops of milk on their tongue. They would be fine. But if that same person has a food allergy to dairy, there's something in the dairy that their immune system reacts to. Literally 2 drops of dairy on the tongue can send them into an anaphylactic reaction where, basically their throat could close off. They could develop hives on their body. They could have difficulty breathing and start wheezing. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about a food allergy. Now, Ocean, you added on the question, how do we diagnose a food allergy? So unfortunately, I first of all, let me say, I wish that we had completely reliable testing for all of this. We don't have fantastic testing. We do have some tests. The best thing to do if you are concerned that you have a food allergy, and again, these can be more dramatic. They don't vary by threshold. Any small amounts will trigger them. Many times they include skin reactions like hives. If you suspect you have a food allergy, the best thing to do is to consult with an allergist. They may do skin testing. They may do antibody blood testing. That being said, both of those tests have their flaws. So at the end of the day, that's why having a health professional who really understands the space can really be important and helpful.
Thank you. Nama asked, can precision nutrition based on gut microbiome samples, like the testing offered by Day 2 or Viome, have an added value to individuals who are adhering to a plant-based diet? What's your thought about those kinds of testing protocols?
Actually, I think this is an exciting area for conversation, and I want to unpack this a little bit if that's okay. But before I even jump into that, let me first bring forward a disclosure to just be completely transparent with everyone before we go in, which is that I actually am on the scientific advisory board for a company named Zoe. And I'll talk to you a little bit about Zoe once we get into the details of this a little bit. Precision nutrition. We do know that there is a difference in the way that we respond to individual foods. There is no question about that. Part of it is our genetics. Part of it is our gut microbiome. There are a number of different factors which do feed into these differences. What I think is important for people to understand, I think that the era of precision nutrition is very exciting, where you can tell me exactly what foods work with my body. But what I want people to understand is that this is not going to radically change the way that we look at our food. So when we do studies with precision nutrition, I can assure you, we will continue to find that the most anti-inflammatory foods that exist are plants. That's not going to change. There's not going to be people that we discover that they are having decreased risk of heart disease because they're consuming red meat, or decreased risk of developing colorectal cancer because they're consuming red meat. Like, that's not going to happen. The reality is this: we have our biology. Biology drives the vast majority of what's happening, and there will be minor fluctuations in terms of our response to specific foods. We may find that we do better with one food versus another. Now, where we are today, let me be upfront and say that we don't have any precision nutrition test that will tell you about food sensitivities. That does not exist by any company, including Zoe. There is none of that. What we do have, so to be honest, most of those companies that you just named, Ocean, I hope you don't mind, but they don't have science to back up any of their claims. What we do have is we do have research that is emerging, looking at the way that our choices can affect our metabolism. And this research that I'm referring to is from this company that I'm affiliated with, Zoe. And the reason why I'm on their science board is because I'm incredibly excited about the science that they're doing. They have two studies that were published in Nature Medicine, which is literally the top scientific journal on the planet. You don't get in there without doing something that is changing the way that we think about things. And basically what they're doing, in short, is they're combining gut microbiome, a continuous glucose monitor, and blood lipid testing, and collecting data from large groups of people, and then using that data set to then provide precision nutrition recommendations. I think the point from my perspective is that I think it's exciting. I think that we're in the early phases of the science. I'm going to say that as being on the science board. We're going to learn a lot more. I do appreciate what they can do in terms of helping us. But at the end of the day, I don't think people need to feel like they're obligated at the same time, because at the end of the day, I think that the rules that you have heard for the last 20 years continue to remain true. They haven't changed. Yeah.
It's interesting. I think that we have a lot of studies that tell us what's good for most people most of the time. Of course, that doesn't mean it's what's best for all people all of the time. Each of us is the only one of us on the planet. And even who you are will change moment to moment because the bacteria in your body are changing constantly and can change in a matter of days dramatically, right? So then that will change how you digest food, how you respond to food, and what nutrients you do and don't need. But I think that there's this combination of the data and the general principles, and then our own personal unique experience, which can be informed by the data, and then recognizing you're the only expert on you that there is, right? And we sometimes can look for some kind of study or person, some kind of testing metric out there to tell us, oh, here's what I should or shouldn't eat. The reality is the best case of that would be a snapshot in time. Mm-hmm. If it really worked, that would probably change, right? Because your gut changes, and then your response to food changes. Do you see it similarly?
Yeah, I do. I think that you're right. And this is, to be completely honest with you, what you just said in the last 60 seconds was the reason why, when I wrote my book, I felt compelled to create some wiggle room in the way that I presented the diet, rather than saying you need to be 100% whole food, plant-based with absolutely no wiggle room at all. I felt compelled to say, look, we are unique individuals. And I do think that there's a place for an intuitive approach to our diet, to our dietary patterns. I think that's important.
Yeah, thank you. How do you intuit your approach? How do you tell the difference between like say you're like, oh, my body really wants this. Well, does your body really ever want donuts? Is it, or is that something else? What's the difference between wisdom or a sense of being drawn to something that your body needs versus addiction or marketing hype, or even historical associations, like we associated candy with being loved by our family members? And then we see it and we're like, oh, I love myself, I want to eat this, but really it's no act of self-love. How do you know the difference between cravings and yearnings, I guess?
I think at the end of the day, because this opens up conversations that are even bigger than this, to be completely honest with you. And I think that at the end of the day, it's very important for us to have a healthy relationship with our food. Food is meant to be enjoyed, and that there is no such thing as perfection. There is no perfect person. There is no perfect diet. And we're all incapable of ever achieving that. So we should never strive towards some sort of, concept of perfection. Now, Ocean, with regard to the scenario that you're describing, I mean, I think that we all know that eating donuts are unhealthy for us. And there are plenty of examples of things through the course of human history where something feels great in the short term and is bad for us in the long term. And so I think what we really need to do is we need to take these concepts of what a health promoting diet looks like, acknowledging that it's a dietary pattern. So it's the big picture. And we are striving to improve that dietary pattern. But at the same time, we shouldn't become so obsessive about it that we actually develop an unhealthy relationship with our food, because that's actually going to make us more sick in the process. And so I think that, this is, to me, why I like to say progress over perfection. I think we should all be striving to do better. I think we should all be looking at our dietary pattern and looking for opportunities to improve it. I do this myself. I clearly am imperfect. But at the same time, we should make some wiggle room where if you like this, if you want to have a donut. It's okay.
Yeah.
You'll be all right.
Sometimes bright lines are helpful for creating clear boundaries. Sometimes, though, they can actually trigger, I think any parent can relate to this, they can trigger a resistance in parts of ourselves that don't like being totally controlled. So some people do better with a little bit of margins around the edges now and then, and they actually feel more comfortable, more alive, more joyous, more connected to their own instincts. And other people, you can't, if you're an alcoholic, you can't have just one drink. You've got to draw a sharp line, because it'll open the door and suddenly you're flooded. And so I think each of us has to look to find out what the truth is for us around that. But I appreciate those sentiments very much. I think that at the end of the day, healthy eating is a means to an end, which is a healthy, vibrant life and being a part of a healthy ecosystem on this planet. It's not an end in itself. And what's the old saying from long ago? A person who eats sprouts and person who eats beer and franks with cheer and thanks will probably be healthier than a person who eats sprouts and bread with doubts and dread. So
I haven't heard that one before, but I exactly. I'm with you 100%. I think that it's important for people to understand that it's okay to be imperfect, because we all are.
Yeah, thank you. Donna asked, does eating plant-based help reverse environmental allergens? Or are there other reasons for these, like genetics or blood, etc.?
Yeah, actually, it's an interesting question. So environmental allergens, when we talk about, the word allergy, we talked about food allergies before. Allergy implies activation of the immune system in response to something from outside of our body. Whereas if it were in response to something within our body, that would be autoimmune. And we know that both allergic and autoimmune issues are on the rise. And there's extremely compelling evidence that the source of these issues starts in the gut microbiome. And so with regard to, allergic type issues, whether we're talking about seasonal allergies, which is what I believe that she's referring to here, or other allergic type issues, I think at the end of the day, what we want is an optimized, precise immune system. And in order to get that, we need a healthy gut microbiome. Ocean, when I was researching my book, Fiber Fueled, I put a table in there. Anyone who's read my book will see this in chapter 1, where I said, I made a list of all of the allergic and autoimmune conditions that I could find that were associated with damage to the gut microbiome, dysbiosis. And the secret, or like the thing that I need to share, is that when I was researching that table, there were no studies with autoimmune or allergic conditions that showed a normal, healthy gut. Every single study where the person has an allergic or an autoimmune issue and they looked at the gut, they found that it was diseased. To me, this is where it originates. So eating a whole food plant-based diet, for the reasons that I've described, is the optimal diet for a healthy gut, is the optimal diet for a healthy immune system as well. And that's why I think it can be beneficial.
So, Will, what is the test that someone can do to find out if they have a healthy gut? You just referenced those studies showing that all the people with those conditions had unhealthy guts. How do we know? And does anybody have a healthy gut?
That second question is a tricky question. Thank you for thank you for asking that. That's a little bit more difficult for me to answer. So To answer your first question, what tests do we do to try to answer, does a person have a healthy gut or not? There is no, from my perspective, there is no commercially available test that has been adequately validated to say with clarity that the test is reliable to say whether you do or do not have a healthy gut. There are tests that are sold, they're very expensive, and they have not been validated. So what that means is they've never actually shown in a clinical research study that you can change outcomes with patients by using these tests. When I refer to the fact that there was evidence of unhealthy guts in these research studies, you have to understand that we're going into a lab at a university here. We're not talking about mass scale testing in the clinic. These are very different things. And so there is no clinically applicable test that I would recommend. I don't use them in my own clinic. What do I do as a gastroenterologist who, basically works on gut health issues all day long? What I do is I look for patterns. So when I see a pattern where the person, first of all, has digestive symptoms, well, okay, the vast majority of people who have digestive symptoms, it's because they have damage to their gut. But when you see that in association with other conditions that have been tied back to dysbiosis or a damaged gut, whether that be, allergic issues, autoimmune issues, metabolic issues like obesity or type 2 diabetes, hormonal issues like endometriosis or polycystic ovary syndrome or breast cancer, neurologic issues, so depression or anxiety or migraine headaches. Those are just a few of the examples. When I see patients who have digestive issues and they simultaneously have several of these boxes that I just listed being checked, I know I don't need a test. If that test were to tell me that their gut was healthy, the test would be lying. So for me, that's what I look for. I look for patterns. Now, Ocean, to define what is a healthy gut, gosh, that is a really challenging and this bit borderline on a philosophical question. And the reason why is because our gut has been designed by nature to adapt to the life that we are currently living. So we as Americans have gut microbes that are adapted to our American lifestyle, which we know what that looks like. And it's different than a gut microbiome that you will find even in the UK, and is certainly different than the gut microbiome that you would find if you studied the Hadza, which is a tribe of hunters and gatherers that live in Tanzania. And we have these differences. And like, what is superior? Well, the problem is if you were to take the Hadza, who do have more biodiversity within their gut microbiome, so we think that's good. But if you were to take them and bring them into the United States, they very rapidly would lose that biodiversity. They've shown this in studies. And so I think the point from my perspective is that, sort of globally speaking, we have general rules like biodiversity is good. We don't have clear answers of what is the line or threshold that defines good versus bad when it comes to gut health. I think, if I were to just paint the picture of where research is going in the next 5 years for people, what I would say to you is this. We have focused a lot in the last 10 years on individual microbes. And I think that the future is less about the individual microbes and more about function. What is the function of your gut? And is the function capable of keeping up with your bodily demands? Those are the questions that we need to answer, because microbes, you could sub one microbe in for another and it may be able to do the exact same thing. But what really matters is your gut able to do what you need from a physiologic perspective?
Yes, thank you. I want to talk a little bit about probiotics and prebiotics. We had some questions about this, and I'll go ahead and just frame it myself here. So I know you're not a huge fan of supplemental probiotics. They provide large amounts of 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 strains when you're more into the diversity. And that's kind of like the equivalent to, one crop over 10,000 acres, right? And we find that ecosystems work best when there's crop rotation and diversity. And certainly our bodies are that way. But at the same time, it would seem that getting a diversity of beneficial bacteria in there is probably advisable. And prebiotics feed the good guys, so to speak. They provide the specific nutrients that our bacteria need. So how do we ingest or absorb beneficial bacteria, and how do we nurture them so they can thrive?
Yeah, I love this question. It's not so much that I'm opposed to probiotics. It's more so that I'm opposed to the way that probiotics have been positioned in the conversation about gut health. That's the issue. I think that there's a clear hierarchy, and I would define it as this. Number one, diet and lifestyle. Because you can't take a C- gut and probiotic your way all the way to an A+. It's just not possible. But you could take a C- gut and you could turn it into an A- with diet and lifestyle. We need to first optimize our diet and lifestyle. That is going to be the most profound factor in terms of enhancing our gut health. I like prebiotics number two because we each have a unique gut microbiome. 8 billion souls on this planet, no two microbiomes that are the same. And that bioindividuality is important and complex. But what is clear is that if you take a prebiotic, even though my pattern may be different than yours, if you and I both take a prebiotic, we will be feeding the healthy microbes inside of us, and they will grow, and they will be more powerfully represented, and they will do things that help us and promote health throughout our body. And this is why I like prebiotics, because everyone can take a prebiotic and they can enhance the growth of their own beneficial microbes. Now, when it comes to probiotics, it's not that I'm completely opposed to them. I do think that there's a place, there's no question. And as a gastroenterologist, I've had tons of patients who have benefited from them. It's more so that I just don't like that it makes it sound like, oh, just go buy a probiotic at the store and then move on with your life. Like, hold on. We need to talk about diet. We need to talk about lifestyle. And we should talk about prebiotics too. But probiotics can definitely help some people. And Ocean, to answer your question, which I think is an important one, where do we get these microbes from? You could get them from a probiotic. It's a very concentrated form of a limited number of microbes. You can also get them from real food. So raw foods have a microbiome because they are alive. All life on this planet has a microbiome. They've done a study where they've looked at the apple. The apple has 100 million microbes. Believe it or not, concentrated largely in the core, which is the part we throw out.
Really?
But yeah, it's a kind of an interesting twist. We all thought it would be on the skin. 100 million microbes, over 1,000 species. Those microbes are part of the life cycle of the apple. They help it go from flower all the way up to fruit. And by the way, differences between the organic apple and the one grown with conventional pesticides. Healthier microbiome in the organically grown apple.
Yeah.
So, but we can get microbes from eating real food. And we can also get microbes from eating fermented foods. And this is part of the reason why I'm an advocate for the consumption of some fermented foods. Not that it's the backbone of our diet, but it's just, I think it's a healthy part of inoculating our gut with living microbes and not just sterile food.
Yeah. And with fermented, are you going to draw a distinction then between, say, the yogurts or plant-based yogurts that are fermented with a very small number of bacteria versus the wild fermented things like sauerkraut and kimchi and fermented vegetables that may have a much more diverse kind of portfolio?
Yeah, I think there's a hierarchy. I think there's a hierarchy there. And I put the fermented plants at the top. And so, like you described sauerkraut and kimchi, or you can do wild fermentation techniques with almost anything. I mean, it's quite, amazing to consider that you can take radishes from your local store and submerge them with some dill, some black peppercorns, and some garlic. Just submerge them in a sea salt solution. Mm-hmm. And they'll turn into a pickle, the radish.
Yeah.
And because the microbes are already there living on the skin. And so I put those at the top. I do think that kombucha has been overhyped. It's a sugar beverage. It's better than drinking soda, but water is better than kombucha. And I think that there's a lot of marketing that exists when it comes to other fermented products that are out there.
Yeah. In terms of prebiotics, what are some of the best sources of the most beneficial forms of fiber?
Prebiotics in a whole food form or a supplement?
Either one.
Okay. So I'm a believer in both. Full transparency. Part of it is because I'm a gastroenterologist, and in my clinic, I recommend prebiotic supplements to my patients, and I see remarkable results. And I actually use them myself, in part because of what I've seen happen in my clinic, and in part because I feel better when I take them. So when it comes to prebiotic supplements, there's a number of different types. They're all derived from plants. So we're talking about wheat dextrin, acacia powder, partially hydrolyzed guar gum. These are just a few of the examples that you could potentially get. You can get acacia powder, organic. And then, when it comes to prebiotics in our food, again, diet should come first. So I always start there. And the beauty of it is that you will read lists on the internet. You will read, artichokes and asparagus and garlic. And it's true, but it's a little bit of an outdated philosophy, to be totally honest with you, Ocean, because what they're talking about really is inulin specifically, which is just one prebiotic that became very in vogue in the research world about 12 years ago. And that's how these lists became generated. Fast forward to 2021, all plants have fiber. All plants have unique forms of fiber. Every single type of fiber feeds unique families of microbes. There is no right or wrong answer. We just need all of them. As many different plants as possible. The more variety that we have, the better our gut microbiome will be.
Yes, thank you. What about, a lot of people ask about blending and blending vegetables, say, or fruit to make smoothies, and are worried that the soluble fiber that's in there will be broken down into smaller particles and will be less efficacious in blended form. Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, there's no question that there are a number of different ways that we can process our food. When I say process, I'm not referring to the ultra processed chemical foods, but I'm just talking about cooking or other kitchen techniques that we can use. Blending is one of them. And, are we better off consuming a salad? Yes, I would argue that we are. Blending the product can change the fiber, can increase access to certain things like an elevation of our blood sugar. At the same time, blending also can increase the bioavailability of certain nutrients. So there's a trade-off, and I wouldn't sit here and go so far as to say that there's such superiority between one choice or the other that we should be avoiding something. Instead, I think that where I tend to move is I'm not worried about smoothies. I think smoothies are wonderful. I consume them all the time. I had one for breakfast this morning. I'm more worried about juicing. I think juicing is something that has become more of a trendy thing. And the problem that doesn't make sense to me is in a society where 95% of people don't even get the minimal recommended amount of fiber.
Yeah.
Why are we making the choice to throw the fiber in the trash?
Yep. And that's what that pulp is. If you make juice, that pulp is fiber. And we really want that, don't we? Okay. Lots of questions from our members. Let's see if we can get to these somewhat quickly. Granted, some of these open up a whole world. Like Sherry's question. She said, how can I heal from leaky gut?
Oh, wow. So, okay. We'll try to move as quickly as we can. Sherry, the answer to your question is, if I were to summarize my philosophy, what I do, and we've talked about this a little bit already. Number one, make sure you know what you're treating. Make sure that there's not something else that's causing your issue, like constipation or celiac disease. Number two, slowly move towards a predominantly plant-based diet, ramping up slowly over time with the foods that cause trouble for you, whether that be fiber from legumes or whole grains. Just kind of ease your body into it. Give yourself some time. It may take months. You will get there and you will feel so much better.
Thank you. Jennifer asked about help in alleviating constipation. She said she tries to eat as much leafy stuff as possible.
Yeah, so the reality is that there are going to be some people who get constipated no matter what they eat. And it's a little bit of a fallacy that we've been sold that if you eat enough fiber, you should be pooping, very easily every single day. That's not necessarily true for everyone. So when it comes to constipation, there are some people who are able to get by with things like prunes or like flaxseed, adding more flaxseed to their diet. Chia seeds, these are some things that people find to be helpful. If we have to move beyond that, one natural approach that I like, that I often will use in my clinic to treat people with constipation, is magnesium. Magnesium as a supplement taken before bedtime is great for bowel movements. It's also good for sleep. It's good for mood. It's good for headaches. So, but of course, do this under the direction of your physician.
Yeah, thank you. We heard from Shaknuza, who said, how do I persuade my brother that what he's eating isn't healthy for his gut? He believes his gut is full of candida and he needs to kill them by dieting. He's been allergic to food for more than 12 years. He doesn't eat meat, fruits, or vegetables. He eats only 2 kinds of meals, which consist of potatoes, water, salt, white rice, and white homemade bread, and a glass of hot water as a drink. Very specific here. To prevent constipation, he uses some medicine like Seneda, pineapple extract, and drops of cinnamon essential oil. Could you tell what food might kill the candida in the gut and restore gut health?
So the good news is you don't need to kill the candida. And that's not to dismiss the question. That's actually to say that we need to go in a different direction. Rather than trying to kill the candida, we should be trying to grow the healthy microbes. Because when we grow the healthy microbes, they actually will inherently suppress the candida. And we have studies to show that. In the interest of time, I won't walk you through the details of the studies, but the point is, it's less about trying to kill the bad guys. It's more about trying to empower the good guys. And so if you were to read my book, Fiber Fueled, it describes an approach or a technique to accomplish that. If I were to offer up a second book, there was a book by Dr. Mahmoud Ghanoum, who is a researcher on the fungal microbiome, the mycobiome, MYCO. And it's called Total Gut Balance. And what's interesting is there's all these candida diets. Here's an expert on the microbiome. And what he says is eat more plants.
Thank you. Eileen said, my daughter has been suffering from IBS, constipation, for years. She's off gluten, dairy, and eggs. Her diet's mainly fruits, vegetables, and a little meat. What else can help? She also gets frequent bloatedness.
I'm not surprised by the bloating. The number one symptom of constipation is bloating. The number one cause of bloating in my clinic is constipation. They are married together. Bloating and constipation go hand in hand. And the key here is about restoring rhythm. So it's not so much about dietary tweaks. It's more so about getting the bowels moving, getting them into a rhythm. And if you get into a rhythm, it's quite amazing how everything in the body falls into place and works the way that it's supposed to. So the most important thing is to make adjustments, perhaps adding magnesium to get things going into a rhythm. And then what you will find is the bloating and gas go away, the fatigue go away, you feel much better, food intolerances disappear, and now you get to open up your diet and start to add things back in.
Thank you. We haven't said a lot yet about water, but my understanding is that for many people with constipation issues, drinking more water helps get things moving. Is that your experience as well?
Yeah, we want to float the log down the river. We don't want the log to get dried up on the rocks. And so it's important to, not to be too graphic, but I want to give this mental imagery because this is the reality. We need to drink enough water and hydrate ourselves. And most people are not drinking enough water, and we're overdoing it on caffeinated beverages or on carbonated beverages. And then we end up constipated. And it's frustrating. And so we need to float the log down the river.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Erlene asked, is there anything like having too much fiber? I heard that digestion slows with age. And does the type of fiber matter to this?
So there is such a thing as too much fiber, just like there's such a thing as too much water or too much oxygen or too much anything. I mean, honestly, you could take anything to excess and hurt yourself. That's part of being human. We have our limitations. So when it comes to fiber, when we consume too much, it can actually have a constipating effect, believe it or not. And so the key when it comes to fiber is, this is why I love to preach, start low and go slow. And as you start to ramp it up over the course of time, you will find where your sweet spot is, and you're going to feel really good. You're going to have good regular bowel movements. And when you're in that place, then you just keep rolling with that.
Thank you. We heard from Hilaire, who said, I'm 65 years old. I've had gut issues over 20 years. How long might it take to heal? And how will I know when it is completely healed? And secondly, if antibiotics are prescribed, what's the best way to counteract the gut damage from them?
So it's impossible to say exactly how long it will take to heal. I mean, how long does it take to heal from an injury to your shoulder? It depends on the exact nature of the injury. And we're all unique, and some people heal really quick and some don't. So it's hard to say, but what we do know is that if you've had 20 years of symptoms, then clearly it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge than the person who's only had it for a few weeks. If you set your course and you point your compass in the right direction and you remain persistent and you stick to it, you will get there. And you will know you are there when you are no longer thinking about it. You are no longer fearful of your food, and you're able to consume the food that you enjoy in abundance and without restriction. Then you'll know you're there. So, Ocean, there was one last part to the question.
Yeah, antibiotics and how to recover from the damage they might do.
So the most important thing with antibiotics, believe it or not, is actually the food that you are eating before, during, and after the antibiotic. So the point being that we want to consume plants when possible before, during, and after the antibiotic. That helps to support our innate microbes to grow the good guys. And we want to try to avoid any sort of thing that can sabotage our gut. So what I'm saying is that, when you're taking antibiotics or after antibiotics, now is not the time for alcohol. Now is not the time for poor sleep. Now is not the time to be lounging on the couch. If possible, of course, within the constructs of your limitations and whatever's going on, try to stay active, try to get outdoors, try to get a good night's rest, eat a healthy diet, and that's the best way to recover from antibiotics.
Thank you. Sandra said, I've been having a severe pain in the mouth of my stomach, and my doctor thinks that it's an ulcer and had prescribed pantoprazole. It has a lot of side effects. I do not want to take it. What can I do naturally for this acid reflux that I'm having? She also said, I have irritable bowel syndrome, but that has gotten better. But the pain I'm facing is so severe that it wakes me up at night.
Well, I think, first of all, and we've mentioned this, I think, a couple times now. The first question is, what are we treating? So we need clarity on that. Is this actually an ulcer? Because it doesn't seem to me that we know that with clarity. Many times when I hear that pain in that area, the upper abdomen is waking a person up in the middle of the night, I start thinking about the gallbladder. And if it were the gallbladder, then any sort of treatment that we do towards an ulcer is going to be a waste of your time. So I think first, diagnostic testing is critically important to understanding this better. If we move forward with the assumption that this is acid reflux, let me just say that there's a reason why Prebiotics is very popular. It works really well. I understand with the side effects. My concern as a GI doctor with the side effects is a long-term chronic use. If short-term use is indicated by, say, an ulcer, that's a very different proposition than the person who's on medication for the next 5 years. That being said, if we're talking about acid reflux specifically, we do have studies that suggest that a Mediterranean plant predominant diet is to our benefit, that fiber supplementation can be helpful, Psyllium husk was the fiber. And I should have mentioned psyllium husk when I mentioned prebiotics earlier. I apologize that I forgot psyllium husk. And that if we eliminate caffeinated and alcoholic beverages and replace them with water, there can be improvement of our acid reflux. So Mediterranean diet, fiber, less caffeine and alcohol, more water.
All right. Thank you. Rachel said, I'm currently listening to Fiber Fueled on Audible, and the book's on the way. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. I'm currently studying to become a holistic nutritionist. I'm wondering what protocol you have for transferring someone with a slow and steady approach from a standard American diet to a whole food plant-based diet. Do you start with cutting out dairy or meat, or do you have them focus on one meal at a time? I know each individual will be different, but I just wondered if you had some examples of how to guide people to gradually adopting a whole foods plant-based diet.
I think that the first step, so first of all, I am a huge believer in progress over perfection. So when I say that there's this end point, which is at least 90% whole food plant-based, potentially as much as 100% whole food plant-based, when I say that, I am recognizing that that is a process that we are building up towards. So for me, if a person is 10% plant-based, which is the average American, and they go to 30%, I am hugely proud of them and so excited. And I honestly believe that they're going to keep going up to 50 and to 70. And so to me, it's about slow and steady. It's about setting goals that are actually achievable, not overwhelming ourselves, but set like short-term goals that we can actually do. And I also think it's about enjoying your food. Your taste buds will change, but you shouldn't feel like you are doing something out of obligation that's going to make you miserable. So what I think is you start with the food that you love. What are the plant-based dishes that you really particularly enjoy? Let's start with those, and then we can expand our palate from there.
Nice. Thank you. So what do you think for somebody who is moving on this journey, like what are some of the yardsticks they could look forward to as they make progress? What are the symptoms? How's their tummy going to feel? How's their body going to feel as they're moving forward?
We know that the gut does take some time to adapt. The idea of slow and low is intended to give your gut that opportunity to make adaptations as you go. It can take a few weeks to really feel things falling into alignment the way that you want them to. But when they do, you're going to feel lighter. You're going to have more energy. Your mind will have clarity. You will find that you are more capable of doing work and sustaining that work and not feeling fatigued from it. From a digestive perspective, you will notice an enhanced ability in terms of being able to process and digest your food. Gas and bloating will improve. Some people in the beginning, it's there. There's no lying. There is gas and bloating in the beginning. But as your body adapts to this new dietary pattern, it becomes efficient. It gets used to it. And it becomes a non-issue. Like I literally can eat as many beans as I want to now, Ocean. I have no issues. But if you were to rewind 9 years, I mean, to eat beans back then, it was like crippling abdominal pain.
Wow.
So the point is you should expect to feel better, to feel energized, to feel growth, to feel lighter. Those things are coming, and it's just a question of when.
Some people refer to the microbiome as not just what's inside of our digestive tract, but also what's on our skin. I might even say that technically your digestive tract is the outside of your body. The gut lining is what decides what's on which side, essentially, right?
Right.
Do you think that what we touch, that, for example, touching dirt to grow food, like gardening, or jumping in a mountain stream in a healthy ecosystem, do you think that these things can actually have a positive influence on what happens on the inside?
I believe that they do. I'm going to give you some of the examples of research studies that would suggest that there is this connection. It's a little bit hard to do good clinical research studies to completely prove this in humans. But, for example, when we look at studies where people spend time outdoors, where people spend time in the garden, we find a number of different health benefits. And the question would be, are those health benefits due to this connection back to our gut microbes? When we look inside the home, the people that you cohabitate with, you start to share similarities in your gut microbiome through cohabitation. You have a pet at home, that leads to changes in the gut microbiome. By the way, this is one of the reasons why we believe that having pets is good for people to prevent allergic issues. And it connects back once again to the gut microbiome. Your house and the level of cleanliness within the house and the products that you use to clean the house can have effects on the gut microbiome. Having a house plant, we believe, could have effects on the gut microbiome. So I think that the point is that our gut microbiome really is the consummation of our total environmental experience. And when I say total environmental experience, it's, as you mentioned, Ocean, it's quite mind-bending to consider this. But because our intestine is a tube that is a closed tube that starts in our mouth and ends at our bottom, that's actually outside our body. These gut microbes are outside of our body. What you had for dinner last night is outside of your body right now, even though it's like down in your bowels, but it's actually not inside your body. And so, that all, our gut microbiome, our skin microbiome, our oral microbiome is all part of our environment.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we're going to need to wrap soon here. I want to share a comment that for anybody who's hearing all this thinking, wow, I might have been eating badly for too long. Is it too late for me? I want to make one thing super, super clear. The less healthfully you've eaten so far in your life, the more you've got to gain by applying what we're talking about today. And the beautiful thing is that your body is resilient and the microbes in your gut have very fast reproductive cycles, which means they can proliferate, they can flourish, and they can bring you benefits remarkably quickly. So, the best time to plant a fruit tree is 20 years ago, but the second best time is right now. Now is the time to put what you're learning into action from whatever your history is. And if you've been eating super well, now's the time to go to the next level. And if you haven't been eating super healthfully, now's the time to slow and steady, slow and low, you say, get rolling on the path. And speaking of applying what you're learning, in a few moments, we're going to make a transition so I can tell you more about Whole Life Club. That's Food Revolution Network's ongoing membership community for helping you really apply everything that we're talking about today so you can sustain and optimize your healthy lifestyle. The doors only open to the public twice a year. And this week, for a few more days, is the last time in 2021. So please stay on if you want to learn more about this opportunity. But first, I want to just say goodbye to Dr. Bulsiewicz and say thank you so much for your insight, your wisdom, your creativity, and for just shedding so much light on what's going on inside of us and how we can befriend the good guys inside of us.
It's amazing. Thank you, Ocean. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to collaborate with you.
This is Will Bulsiewicz, Dr. B, as his patients call him, author of Fiber Fueled, an incredible book. If you want to learn more, get the book. And Will, again, thank you so much for being with us. We'll let you transition off now. And I want to invite everyone to stay on with us so you can learn more about Whole Life Club and how you can take action to get results in your life. If you're already a member, there's no need to keep watching. If you're not, and if you're interested in maybe taking some notes to land the plane, so to speak, so you can really make this happen in your life, then keep on watching because this is an incredible opportunity. And Dr. B, you can head off now if you like. You're welcome to stay and join us if you want to. We started Whole Life Club because we wanted to help people get results. So many people are on information overload right now. I mean, you've got so many studies, so many journals, so many articles telling us this and that and that and the other about what you should be eating. And I think the reality is that what's needed now isn't more information, it's more clarity, more distillation of what does it actually mean for you, and more help applying what you learn. You see, there's a big difference between knowing what to do and doing what you know. If all that was needed in the world right now is we just needed to know we need to eat more vegetables and less processed junk, we would not have an obesity epidemic. We would not have sky-high rates of gut health problems and diabetes and obesity and heart problems and cancer and Alzheimer's like we see today. But the reality is there's sometimes a world of a difference between knowing and doing. And so we created Whole Life Club to help you make that journey from confusion to clarity and from knowledge to action, and to provide a steady, solid, and consistent wind at your back to keep empowering your journey. You know, the truth is we live in a toxic food culture. And all around us, we have influences pulling us, sometimes sucking us in the wrong direction, towards more and more of the heavily advertised, heavily subsidized, heavily normalized foods that are in the long run proven to cause illness. Whole Life Club is about giving you a wind at your back to help you steadily and consistently keep making progress, to make it easier and more delicious than you might have ever imagined to enjoy fabulous, healthy food. So every month in Whole Life Club, we've got a theme, kind of like a course for the month. Some of our past themes have been topics like brain health and heart health, anti-cancer living, digestive health, blood sugar balance, boosting energy levels, bringing down inflammation, and lots more. And with that theme, you get a monthly action hour with a health revolutionary, and Whole Life Club members get to submit their specific questions for the guest expert, as well as a transcript so that you can absorb it all later, and an action checklist distilling specific tangible action steps you can take. And then also every month you get more recipes. In fact, weekly we bring out 6 new recipes for Whole Life Club members, and you get access to our entire library when you join. So you can sort through more than 500 amazing, delicious whole foods plant-based recipes by regional cuisine, or by specific ingredients, or by specific allergens. So if you're allergic to almonds, you can find only recipes that have no almonds. If you got a lot of broccoli around, you can find the recipes that have lots and lots of broccoli. And every week you get 5 new recipes, an action of the week video, a simple action checklist to help keep making progress towards your goals. And right from the get-go, you get our entire library of action hours and recipes and videos and tools to help you implement and love your healthy lifestyle. So what kind of impact does Whole Life Club actually have on our members? Well, we conducted a survey a little while back, and we asked them, how's it going? What's it doing for you? How has your life changed? And what we learned was so heartening. Our club members were telling us about losing weight, gaining more energy, having more continuity in their healthy eating lifestyle, getting off medications that they no longer needed, having healthier social dynamics, feeling more supported, feeling less lonely and more confident. So if you can relate to wanting any of that, then now's your time. You see, we're holding a series of action hours this week. The one a couple days ago with Dr. David Katz, this one today, one on Wednesday with Dr. Kim Williams. And to celebrate this series, as well as the Food Revolution Summit that we completed a little while back, we're opening the doors to Whole Life Club so you can enter directly for what will be the last time in 2021. So this is an incredible opportunity to join with a whole bunch of cohorts and enter this community and have it with you for life. And it expires on Thursday. So what does Whole Life Club mean to our members? Well, recently I got to chat with Jean. She's from New Jersey, and she said she wanted to share how Whole Life Club had impacted her life. So now let's go ahead and roll the video so you can see what it's meant to Jean. Here we go.
My name is Jean, and I'm from New Jersey.
And when you joined Whole Life Club, and prior to that, what were some of the health and or food challenges you were struggling with, and how did that impact your life?
I think my health journey, and it's been a journey, started when I went to the doctor and got a very bad cholesterol report. This was one time, and I was shocked to see that the doctor immediately took out a pad and wanted to write me a prescription for the rest of my life to be on statins. Well, that didn't sit well with me, so I left and tried to remediate my health myself. And I did very well. Within 5 months, I went back for another checkup, and my report was perfect. So you see, I could have gone down a very slippery slope, which would not have been at all good for my health. And that came at a time, there was sort of a convergence of several factors. I came across forks over knives, which I think was transformational. I was so surprised at what I learned there. And then I came across the Food Revolution Summit and really just soaked that all up. That led to a host of docuseries on health. After the Food Revolution Summit, I determined that my husband and I would be eating plant-based meals every other day. And then when I had all that head knowledge, it was, life gets in the way. It was difficult to implement on a steady course. And plus, I'm the only one of my friends and acquaintances who had that knowledge. And therefore, I really didn't have support among the people that I see every day. So my mind was flooded with information, but I needed implementation. And that's why when you introduced Whole Life Club, I immediately jumped on it. I think I was probably the first person to sign up. And that's been just wonderful experience for me.
What have you most gotten out of Whole Life Club? What's been most valuable to you in it?
Well, it's first of all, it strengthens my resolve. It equips me with tools, and the tools are so useful to me personally in my busy life. I love the fact that there's so many aspects to improving our health. It's not only the sleep, the quality of the sleep that we get, but the exercise, not just what we put in our mouths, but the cosmetics, the toothpaste, the dish soap that we use. Where do you start with all of that? It's overwhelming. But in Whole Life Club, I'm getting little sound bites from you each week. And they're definitely easy. Who doesn't have 10 minutes to listen to this week's video? Everyone does. And, you give the presentation. It's grounded in science. You give the explanation, and then you give the challenge. And that's what I love about it. It sort of comes to me in sound bites, which fits into my busy life. I love the recipes. Now, I've often asked myself, why didn't I just go out and get a recipe book on plant-based eating? I don't know why. But when I look forward to those 5 or 6 recipes every week, I have trained myself to download a couple of them and make sure that I implement 1 or 2 that week. It makes it easy for me because it's coming at me in manageable amounts. And let's see what else. I love first of all, about the recipes. I love that there are hints there about making them gluten-free, about making them dairy-free. So that helps me when I'm entertaining friends who have certain dietary needs. And I love that I found out about new foods. I had never heard of farro before. I never knew what that was. I never knew there were so many beans. Brownies made out of beans. This is all, it's all learning, and I'm enjoying expanding my eating repertoire. And I have my favorite recipes are let's see, I have them right here. Loaded sweet potato bowl, love it. Farro, butternut squash salad, can't wait. We're all salivating for it. Very good. I love the fact that you have the interviews and that I can watch them at my leisure. I don't always have time for an hour to listen attentively, but when I do want to watch, they're available. Or if I want to rewatch, I love that. And I also love that the social platform that you've chosen is something other than Facebook. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with Facebook, and I wouldn't, shall we say, post as willingly if it were Facebook. So it's an affordable way for me to maintain a consistency in my journey to better health. And I just love the fact that it's, like I said, sound bites. It fits into my schedule.
That's so great to hear. When you look at where you are in your health journey now, if you were to summarize some of the things that have improved or shifted and what that means to you, what would you say?
It means a lot to me. It sort of has, it almost has become my number one focus in my free time. So knowing what I did about how if I hadn't declined a life of statin drugs, I don't have a lot of, I want to take control of my own health. I don't want someone else making decisions for me, doctor or no doctor, because I found that most doctors want to write a prescription. I don't even take a pill, an aspirin. I don't think I've had an aspirin in a year. I don't want drugs. I don't want prescriptions. I want to heal myself naturally. And now I feel so empowered to do that. From what I've learned from the Food Revolution Summit that you and your dad have run, and reading your book, and this a Whole Life Club, the information that you've given. You know, 1 week it's protein, another week it's calcium. It's okay. I can handle it 1 week at a time, and I love knowing it for myself so that I can be my own advocate.
Wonderful. Thank you. If you were to say one thing to somebody who's thinking about joining Whole Life Club, what would you tell them?
Do it. You'll never regret it. Maximize your health. That's the most important thing we have. So you're a small investment in your life. Certainly the most valuable thing you can do for yourself. Skip a day at the spa or whatever else you would spend your money on. This is ongoing, sustainable, long-lasting, and I think so good for me personally. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to Jean for those incredibly moving and heartening words. I'm so grateful for her courage and her moving example of what is possible. And the truth is, we have the incredible privilege in our team at Food Revolution Network of getting to hear stories like this almost every day, and every one of them means so much. So what's your story going to be? What is your story? How does this fit into your story? Because the truth is that the steps you take move you forward. But when you step in a new direction and you keep going and going and going, you can end up in a very, very different place. So Whole Life Club is not just a step or a direction, it's a path you can keep walking that will help you keep advancing towards the life, the vitality, the joy that you deserve. And now I want to say this. If you're feeling inspired, like you might want to implement some of what you're learning. If you're feeling a place inside you that says, yes, I am interested, I want to step forward, even a place that's curious, then this is an opportunity right now that you do not want to miss, because the doors are open for this week only until Thursday to join Whole Life Club and make it happen for you. And it all comes with a total 60-day money-back guarantee. So you can jump in, you can experience it all, you can check out all of the recipes, all of the library of content. You've got 2 months. If you change your mind for any reason, you get a complete refund. But if you step forward, you also get to lock in with a special price. Right now, you can get a huge discount. Just go ahead and click on the link and you can find out more about how you can join in for that huge discount with a price that will never go up. Even if we raise the price in the future, you're locked in. So you can keep making progress solidly and steadily. And right now it's on huge sale. So this is your time. If you're interested in joining in, please do. And make sure you join us on Wednesday for our next action hour in this series. We'll be on with Dr. Kim Williams on looking at the cardiovascular disease epidemic and what you can do to help heal your heart. This is such an incredible week, and I am so thrilled to be sharing it with you. I'm so glad you're here. And if you're so inspired, I invite you to join us in Whole Life Club and take that next step. And I hope you enjoy some delicious, fabulous, gut-healthy food. And I thank you so much for your time, for your attention, and for your participation in the food revolution. Let's do this. When it comes to cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, heart disease, and other chronic illness, what really matters isn't how many books you read, how many webinars you attend, or how much you know. What really matters at the end of the day is what you eat and how you live. The science has given us what we need to know. Now it's time for action. It's time to implement and optimize your healthy lifestyle. It's time to get results. It's time to say goodbye to confusion and hello to clarity. It's time to say goodbye to bad habits and hello to good ones. It's time to fall in love with foods that love you back. It's time to join a community that will support you in achieving your goals. It's time for Whole Life Club. Click the link to find out more and to join in now.